Well, hello and welcome. If you have found yourself on this video today, then that means you are about to undergo this musical journey with us.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah,
We
yeah, me
haven't
too.
even introduced it, and I'm getting too excited.
My name is Mary,
I'm Cameron.
and this is RadioSpective. So, what is RadioSpective, you may be asking? Well, I will tell you. Basically, what we're going to be doing is looking at the top rated album on Rate Your Music for every month from all the way from 1960 into 2020.
hmm That's a full 60 years, so we got a lot of stuff to go through, and we're going
Yep,
month by month, so that means 12 albums for each year for 60 years. Did I say
yep,
that right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
So that,
each video will be a full year, but we'll have one album per month. So we'll
yeah.
be talking about 12 albums in each video, basically. We how we sort of assembled this list is we looked at the Rate Your Music charts like one year at a time, and we basically went through and just pulled out the top album from each month,
hmm
which unfortunately means that some of them didn't quite make the cut, but
Yeah, we lost out on quite a lot of good albums, but I think that's kind of the point. We kind of want to specifically look at the top of each month and see how it compares and see why it's so
right,
popular.
exactly. Now, in terms of other criteria, there were a few other caveats that we had when looking at the albums. First of all, it had to have at least 800 scores on the site just to prevent albums that would have a tendency from sliding around a lot on the charts from
Yeah.
ranking too high.
Also, the algorithm gets switched up a lot on Rate Your Music,
It does. Yep,
so that messes with the lower rated stuff and kind of
it
changes the
does.
algorithm and the math
Right.
of why it
Right,
shows
for
up.
sure. Well, with some of the more recent algorithm changes, a lot of really like obscure stuff with not a lot of ratings has ended up charting higher,
Mhm.
which for the health of the site is probably pretty good, but it wasn't especially helpful for our considerations for this project.
Yeah,
So we have elected to leave those ones out. Second caveat is that we will not be discussing any soundtracks, so no TV film scores, no video game soundtracks.
no anime.
Yep, yeah, no anime. We're strictly looking at albums
Yeah,
here.
and this could always be a future series as well. We might do a few videos on soundtracks eventually, but
Sure,
for right now, that's looking too far in the future, I think.
exactly. And then the third caveat is that we did not include any albums for which the music was composed significantly earlier. So the music had to have either been composed that year or the year it was recorded. Basically, what this means is no recordings of classical pieces that were composed in the
Yeah.
1800s or whatever.
And there's a lot of these that just recently popped up and got put on the site, which, like, midway making this list, it made it a little harder because everything
Mm,
switched around on us.
yeah,
But it made it easier if we could just ignore that or those albums. And it also doesn't make sense that we take them because, they're old release songs that just have a different composer to them.
for sure, for sure. Cameron, did you want to discuss a little bit about why we chose Rate Your Music specifically?
Oh, sure. The reason why we chose Writing Music is that it's particularly, actually, it's strictly only user based. It doesn't take into account like famous critics, and it doesn't kind of inflate scores like it would on other sites. In some sites, it's just one critic, and that's their score, kind of like Pitchfork.
Right,
But with Write Your Music, we could get a ton of data from easily enough because we could see how many people rate it,
for
what the
sure.
average score is for that album. We could see the release date, which is really important for this project. And it also gives us a lot of information about specific albums, like what musicians contributed to each album, what kind of instruments they play, like really deep stuff people add on. It's kind of like a
Right.
Wikipedia page.
It's a really nice database for all of the information that will be
Yeah,
relevant to our project that we might need. Just quick reference point in one area, in addition to what Cameron said, the fact that it's a wide array of user scores rather than a single person
yeah.
influencing what the score is.
Also, I do kind of want it to be something that you the viewers can use at home and kind of follow along with us. It's very easy to use,
Hmm.
so it's something everyone can access and give their own opinions about.
Right, and it's a site that both of us have been using for years,
Yeah,
so it's also kind of just easy for us
yeah,
personally.
and we catalog all the things we rate. So if you even want to check what we've listened to before or what we have rated, just check our profiles. I'll put the link in our description right below the video, and that should give you a good idea of what we listen to. But
Yeah.
we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
So basically, how the videos are going to work for this series, we're going to openly discuss our thoughts on each album, sort of give what our personal score for them is on a scale from zero point 0.5 to 5, the same scale that they use on
Yeah,
Radio Music, just
yeah,
so that it's an easy.
they use stars basically, and I'll probably portray that in the video somehow.
Yep.
Kind of
Yeah,
make it
and
easy to
like
see.
you can do half star. So it's basically a scale of 1 to 10, but
Yeah.
think of it in terms of 0.5 to 5. And then we're at the end of each month when we discuss the album, we're also going to give two runner-ups that didn't quite make the cut. This is sort of important because sometimes you'll have three albums in the top 10 that all came out in the same month,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's like, well, it's hardly fair that we're representing just one album when like the other two are better than like
Yeah.
half the months of the year, according to the site.
And I think it's important to show the runner-ups just to give you an idea of what else came out that year.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Kind of give you the feel of the genres that have been popularized or just the bands that we'll see a lot of. There's a
Hmm.
huge trend of like certain bands that are in like almost every year in a certain decade.
Yeah, and with the runner-ups, I will say outright, I'm going to say that there's no guarantee that we've listened to all of them. In fact, it's
Oh,
pretty
for
likely
sure.
that we're not going to listen to all of them because we have a lot of albums to get through this for this project. That being said, if we have listened to them or if we do go out of our way to listen to them and we find that we like them, we will indicate whether those are recommendations from us. We probably won't discuss them at length,
Yeah.
but we'll say, hey, this album's good. You should check it out.
Yeah. There'll be something on the screen letting you know that, hey, this is an album you should check out.
Yes. According to our arbitrary
Our preference, yes,
decisions
yes.
of quality. Yeah.
And we'll be
Um
looking at data from both Rate Your Music. We'll put that on the screen, and I'll put our scores, and we'll look at them at the end of the video or each video.
right. Yep. Um Continuing on with how the videos are going to work. Uploads will be weekly. We will start from the like lowest aggregate cuz we averaged out all the
Mm-hmm.
album scores from each year.
Yeah, from 1960 to 2020, I believe.
Yep. There were some months in which we didn't have any albums that met the criteria, namely earlier on in the 60s,
Oh yeah.
simply because there weren't as many cataloged on the site with enough ratings.
Mm-hmm.
So, granted, those years that did affect some of the average scores of those years. It did bring them down a little bit. But that being said, the upload schedule will be, we'll starting with the lowest average rated year to the highest. It's going to seem like kind of a random assortment of years, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it's good that we're not going to be listening to all the same stuff all the time like we
Yeah.
would if we were going decade by decade. You'll get a healthy mix. You might get a video that features the 80s, and then next week you'll get one from the 2010s. It'll mix it up a lot, and it'll add a lot of variety.
Yeah, which I think is kind of important when we're doing a big project like this, because this is estimated to go until 2022, I believe,
Oh yeah.
from the
Yep.
schedule, because we're doing 60 videos.
Yeah, and there's 52 weeks in the year, so
Yeah, you do the math.
yeah, exactly. There are going to be some trends that will naturally emerge with something like this. Now, obviously, since we're mixing up the year, you won't necessarily be able to view decades, unless you deliberately go out of your way to watch
Yeah.
the videos in terms of chronology. But there are certain trends that are true for any year. The There tend to be a lot of higher rated albums in certain months, and
Hmm.
more notably, December and January tend to have almost nothing for
Yeah.
for album releases.
Kind of the reason I researched this as to why, and apparently like a lot of studio producers go on vacation and they won't take jobs during this time to produce or record albums because it's
Oh,
around the holidays. So
I
that's
just
why you
kind of
get
assumed
less release
I just
dates.
kind of assumed that it was because of like awards. Like you don't really stand it. Well, I mean, I suppose that's more so for
That's
popularized
yeah,
music,
that's
but
more so for the current like generation, I guess, of music.
yeah, right.
Uh, but yeah, those are the ones. It's just not a good time to release albums in general. But that's not to say there's no good albums for December,
Right.
January.
Uh,
But
but
it's
what it does mean is that we might have a lot more variety that way because
yes,
there might be something very different that's sort of outside the cultural norm. Like it might
yes,
be from a lot further down on the list because we simply didn't have any really really high scoring albums
yeah.
for that month.
And that was kind of the intention with the series, is because like yes, we could have done the top 10 from each year, but we would have just got the top 10. We wouldn't get anything obscure. We would have only gotten the ones everyone knows. And I kind of want
Right.
to have something new, something that, surprises me.
For sure. And with the top 10, I just feel that's kind of predictable. Like
Yeah. It's boring.
I mean, if you know what the user base of the site is like, you know exactly what kind of
Exactly.
albums we're going to be talking about. And yes, we will still be talking about some of those albums, but there will also be some things that you might not have listened to before.
Yeah. And that's why we want you along for the ride. I want you I really want this to be kind of a community thing as well. I want people to be commenting critiques about, our opinions about the albums on the list or the runner-ups that we should check out. I
Right.
just
Yeah, if we name drop a runner up and we don't really seem to have listened to it or we don't say
mhm.
anything about it and you feel really strongly that it is your favorite album ever, please tell us why. We would love to hear it.
Yeah.
We would love to know why we should make the time and listen to this album.
Yeah. As Rate Your Music is just as much about the community. It's kind of how I want this channel to be. It's just a lot of openness to each other's view on different music, because I find
For
that
sure.
fascinating. Everyone has a different taste,
Yeah.
and I love that.
So yeah, if this project seems like something that might be interesting to you, definitely subscribe, hit the bell, keep up
Oh
to
yeah,
date with our
yeah.
series, and yeah, like I said, uploads will be weekly,
Yep.
and yeah, we'll
I
be
hope.
we'll be going through the years.
Yeah, I hope you guys are gonna stick around with us, because this is gonna be a long series, and I'm really looking forward to this journey for
Yeah,
sure.
me too. It's gonna be fun.